Oh wow, that's pink. Hi guys, it's Filo. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking books. In December I've read 5 books. 3 of them were really good. One I really didn't like, and it's a classic, and one was very interesting. They're all pretty short because December is a crazy month for me. So yeah, let's go. Okay, so the first one was Of Mice and Men by Steinbeck. My first Steinbeck, actually. I'm a bit ashamed to admit that I bought it for the title because I really love mice. I still have one. I had 4, but there's only one left and she's very old. Anyway, it's about 2 men working in ranches in the US in the 30s. It's a parable about the American dream. Really interesting, very well written, very short. It's like 165 pages. You've probably seen the movie, but I hadn't, so I didn't know anything before reading it, and now I want to watch the movie. I read it in one sitting, and though at first I thought it was slow and I thought I wasn't getting into it, soon I was crying my eyes out and sobbing. And as I said in my previous video, I don't cry. I think I only cried when reading Rohinton Mystery's A Fine Balance. So that's the second book that made me cry ever. In such a short book, I was really impressed by the depth of the analysis of social class from the eyes of the laboring class. The friendships also feels very vivid, and the whole ranch and all the characters feel very much alive. Basically, it will trap you and break your heart into tiny little pieces. But it's worth it. I enjoyed a lot Steinbeck's style, and I want to read more from him, like East of Eden or The Grapes of Wrath. So if you can help me decide which one to read first, thank you. The next one was The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald. I don't know. I didn't like it. It's a portrait of the American society in the Jazz Age, so the 20s. It's also a fable about the American dream, but this time in the opposite way, because we're following the Great Gatsby, who is a very wealthy man. Again, we see how social classes are perceived, but this time it's more the differences between rich people. The narrator is a neighbor of Gatsby's, and he's so annoying. He feels irritating and at times directly sluggish, so that was a big pet peeve for me. Besides, I didn't click with any character. I know you're not really supposed to love them, but they're so misogynistic, it's really infuriating, and they don't seem to have any personality or anything interesting about them. So yeah, I didn't enjoy this book. But as there's always something good in everything, I want to think. In this book, I really liked some of the reflections about loneliness, and I marked some quotes I really liked. So, for example, it's in Spanish. So, now the third one I read was 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, because I'm French, I don't pronounce the H. A friend recommended me this author, and particularly The Kite Runner, I think his most famous work. So I was supposed to start with this one, but then I stumbled upon this one in the bookstore and I just couldn't resist. The story is set in Afghanistan from the 70s till 2003, I believe. It's a coming-of-age story of two Afghan women, Leila and Mariam, who we follow during the Soviet War, the US invasion, and then the Taliban insurgency. So really not fun, but so interesting. It's also very well written and there's romance, but all in all, what I found the most interesting was learning about history and the Afghan culture. I really enjoyed how the author integrates words from Afghan languages, so Pashtun and Dari, inside the text that makes you feel really immersed in the story. I was born in the 80s and I feel like we've always heard about Afghanistan as a country at war, and we forget that it hasn't always been the case and we know very little about it. And this book does a great job at telling you a great story while teaching you about history and culture. So now I'll have to read The Kite Runner or The Mountains and The Mountains Echoed, and there's also The Sea Prayer. Okay, so help me choose. The fourth one was Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, and I didn't know that, but it's the first of, I think, 13 books. Yeah, so it's a very long series, and here you follow a man, Louis, who is turned into a vampire after the death of his brother, and he's not the typical cold-hearted vampire. And you also follow his mentor, Lestat, who is quite the opposite. It was a lot more philosophical than I thought, and I really enjoyed it a lot. At first, I was marking almost every page, so then I decided just to annotate it. I enjoyed the style very much. Again, you've probably seen the movie, but I hadn't, so now I want to watch it. I like that Louis gets to learn with every new character he meets about grief, loneliness, what it means to be human, good and evil, and even religion somehow. And it feels complete, you know, because there's a lot going on, and at the same time, the writing styles make you think deeply about very important subjects in life. So I love the style, with great dialogues, a good rhythm, introspections, symbolism, metaphors. It has everything. Now, I've heard people say that this one or the third one are the best books of the series, so tell me if I should keep reading. The last one I read in December was A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. It was my second Dickens after Oliver Twist that I read in November and loved it. But this one is really short. I think it's under 100, yes, just under 100 pages. So you can read it in one sitting. I read it the day before Christmas, and that's perfect, perfect timing. And look at the cover. It's just so nice. I missed the illustration I had in Oliver Twist because it's the same collection, but Oliver Twist has, besides of this beautiful cover, those illustrations. Oh, so beautiful. This one is a short tale about a very grumpy man named Scrooge who is visited by the ghost of his associate and three spirits the night before Christmas. I can't tell you much more about it because it's so short and truly magical, and you have to experiment it firsthand. But just know that, to me, there's no doubt that Dickens knows how to talk seriously about social problems and tell you about seemingly meaningless lives of poor people. And his humor is so unique. He makes you laugh, he makes you hope, and he makes you think about life. That's wonderful. It's really so heartwarming. Read it, but read it at Christmas time. And now let me read you the first lines. Stave 1. Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know, of my own knowledge, what there is particularly dead about a doornail. And after reading Oliver Twist and A Christmas Carol, I learned that Dickens really lived in poverty his whole childhood and was an orphan at a very young age, so he totally knew what he was talking about. And I find it so interesting. Now I have to read David Copperfield. Now I'm realizing that all those books, in one way or another, talk about loneliness. I'm not surprised, I'm not even mad. I think that's clearly an inexhaustible subject, and I want to read more about it. And if you're still here at this point, thank you so much. You might as well subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss my next videos. I'll see you soon with more bookish and bullet journaling content, and until then, enjoy reading! I was really impressed by the depths. I don't feel my leg. And it feels complete, you know, because there's a lot going on. Plain. There's a lot going on.